Good morning.
Are you talking to me or you're talking to all your buddies out there?
What? Now are you implying I'm mentally unstable? Is this what you're implying this morning?
No, you're talking to all those Jenni White fans out there saying, God, what's Jenni got today? I need to drop the hammer on some people.
That's it. That's what it is. No, but I do like to start the live chat on Rumble so that people have a chance to, you know, put their comments in there, and they do, and that's good. And so I'm all good with that. So what's up with you this morning?
Well, nothing. I have a little jewel for you this morning. A little about 15-second jewel.
Oh goodness. Okay.
Because you know how much I love central banks and all of that business.
We all love that. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We all love being controlled and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know, when you talk to people about economics and central banks and currency, you know, they just have no idea. And when you talk about a private bank and they don't play by the rules, and this is just a little clip I want people to hear, especially you, Jenni, because this guy just says it exactly and they start laughing. They literally start laughing. So this is the New Zealand Central Bank. Yeah, this is the New Zealand Central Bank. They're, you know, whether it's New Zealand or doesn't matter, the same people run and own all these private central banks. So these guys are in a select, you know, some kind of committee hearing. And this is on Zoom.
Okay.
So I'm going to play this. I'm probably going to play it a couple times. I want you to listen exactly what this guy says.
Okay.
Ready?
We actually fund ourselves and then work out what dividend is needed to pay. So we kind of it's a great business to be in, central banking. You print money and people believe it. And touch wood.
Hear that? They fund themselves and then they figure out what dividend they pay. They're in a great business to be in.
Play that one more time, just because it's so gross.
Yeah, they play it one more time, and people believe it. Then they start laughing. Okay, that is these people that own and control this world that we think our government money is our money. It's not. It's these private banks. So listen to this guy again.
We actually fund ourselves and then work out what dividend is needed to pay. So we kind of it's a great business to be in, central banking. You print money and people believe it. And print money and people believe it. And
print money and people believe it. And it's funny.
You know, it's the whole, honestly, you know, what that is a perfect example of the elitism.
Yeah.
That we're witnessing in just everything today. It's just, they are literally now at a point where these, you know, world elitists feel like there is no, I mean, they just have been in that bubble so long that they completely believe that they are it. They are the children. They are God's anointed. And the rest of us are simply idiots to be managed.
Well, that's true. And, you know, they would have never said anything like that 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Now it's all out in the open. They have no problem, you know, just telling you exactly how it is, putting it right in your face. You know, most people, they don't even think about it. It just goes right off, you know, oh, well, you know, whatever. I'm telling you, these people are the worst people in the world. They love money. They, you know, which we know is the root of evil.
Yeah, but you know, I don't even know, is it the money or is it the power? Because I think when you listen to them talk and their level of just disdain.
Yeah.
I mean, just literally just disdain. You people are so funny. You freaking idiot.
It's probably more, you're right.
You know, I mean,
it's the power. Yeah, they're sophisticated. See, they understand finance is very sophisticated. You have to, you know, the everyday person has no idea about finance. You just, you hear some guy's got some investment. Oh yeah, whatever.
Right.
But because they understand finance, they just think they're so much better and they can make better decisions for us all together. It's all entangled, but yeah, it is that whole power aspect, because ultimately what is money? Money is power. I mean,
exactly.
when you can print your own money and people have to use it, they have to take it. They have to trade in it. They have to live their life by what you print out of thin air. Then they have all the power.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're 100%. It makes perfect sense. But I just want to point out that, yes, money, but people get power in other ways too.
Yeah.
I mean, people get power over other people by blackmailing them. There's a lot of that goes on in these upper echelons too. So it's not just money, but money makes the world go round, because it does tend to, influence and ingratiate power, and power is power over the peons, is what people.
Yeah. Well, and we see that same exuding of power, like with all these stories that Mary from Visit has broken, where these people in power over these kids at these schools, there's no money really associated with that, but it is the power these people have over these kids.
Correct.
And that's just major. I guess that's just part of the, being human, being, the fallacy of being human.
Well, I kind of disagree there, because not everybody is interested in power. I mean, a lot of people still do things because they're the right things to do. It's this level of elitists that we need to come together and strive against. These people who do believe that power is so important. And in the case with it, because I thought you made a really good point, and you transitioned well into Mary, who we're going to bring on here in just a second. Power doesn't come just in money. It does come in having, effect over people. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in Mary this morning. Morning, Mary.
Good morning. Nothing like starting the morning off talking about the Rothschild family of global influence. It's terrifying. If people haven't gone back and read a bit about where this all started with globalism and the Rothschild family, and how they set up the world banks and then just kept shoving their progeny to different European cities to start a new bank that now has spread like a virus and controls us all. That clip, I hadn't seen that. That is daunting.
Yeah.
And you're right. The progeny of the original evil genius never seems to be able to shut up and stay on the down low like the originals did. And now we're 2, 3, and 4 generations into that family, and they're right out in the open.
Well, look at George Soros' son.
Exactly.
He's in the big fat middle of everything all the time.
He is. And I'm so glad, Michael, you made that transition, because I was thinking, as you were talking about, the two of you were talking about power and control. Child sexual abuse is the ultimate crime of power and control over someone who can be 100% controlled. Spiritually, physically, intellectually, in every way. So that is it. Yep.
Sad fact, but fact. All right. Blogger. So you have, we're hoping to stick a little bit about, your new series on the Coaches Inn before the end of the program, but let's start out with your top story for today.
Top story for today. Okay. Well, this is the Visit Vantage website on Substack. So that's V1SUT. You can actually just go to V1SUT.com and it'll take you straight there. We're going to talk today about, up here in the top left corner, misleading measures in public education. But if you get a chance, there's a lot going on in this state.
You've written 4 blogs now in the last 2 weeks?
Probably. And there's probably 20 in the waiting. There's so much to cover. And so many people that are voiceless in the state that the media just will not cover. So if you get a chance, our harmful coaching series, we have had to fight legally and otherwise to get back to the series. There are a lot of people who seem to love cease and desist letters and attorneys to stop us talking about child sexual abuse in public education. But no one's going to file a lawsuit on this because the discovery process for schools and individuals would be so revealing. So we're back. We've gotten a lot of support from some legal organizations and free speech organizations. But we just posted part 2, which is our first part in this series was really the tragic story of 2 girls who were report being drugged and raped by teachers and coaches. And the second story is probably a more common theme of those coming forward to the publication of being a child, being an adolescent girl, and being brought into a sexual relationship with an adult, with a coach, teacher, and manipulated in the most unthinkable ways. So if you get a chance, this is the story of someone that we'll call Sarah. She did submit her official statement to the OSDE under her real name, but for purposes of public media, which I completely understand, we are calling her Sarah. And I think there will be a lot of current and former students who align with this story and understand that this was not their fault, this was not their doing, and this was not their choice. And this was a predator who very actively pursued them into something that would have never happened. It's stolen innocence. So if you get a chance, please read that series and let those women be heard. Also, down here in the bottom left-hand corner, there is nothing better to binge watch on Netflix or otherwise than what's going on in Bartlesville.
Disgusting story.
The 30-second version is that a group, actually a couple in some of their cohorts, came into Bartlesville as sort of the high-tech champions. Some public money from the Bartlesville Development Authority was given to them to come and headquarter their high-tech business. They're into Bitcoin and blockchain and all of these things that people invest in but don't actually understand. So they're very ripe for scams.
Except for Michael.
Good. Then I should probably consult with you on the next article. But they came into town, and somehow, with the corruption that goes on in the local level of government across police, city council, city manager, city attorney, the courts, 2 judges, again, we see. These people were handed the jewel of Bartlesville for free, the Price Tower, which is a Frank Lloyd Wright, the only skyscraper that renowned architect Frank Lloyd Wright ever designed. And if you have ever been there, it is the jewel of Bartlesville. It is the draw. It is where people take pictures. It is where they curated, through a nonprofit, $20 to $30 million worth of artwork and historical artifacts about their community, about this architecture, about other kind of art. And now this group has gotten a hold of all of it. And instead of helping, as they said they would, they are selling off the city's history. You can read a bit in there about their past and their involvement in a $722 million scam to take mostly small investor retirement funds from people in a scam called the Bit Club. It is a daunting story. It's a very sad thing that's happening to Bartlesville, and I hope people will read. There was a whistleblower, and we cover this case in here. A whistleblower came forward, someone that worked with them in other states, and directly warned the city, sent an email to the city manager and city attorney within saying, this is what's happening to your town. These people are scammers. Within 24 hours, the judge is there, same judge as we've talked about before, put a VPO on that whistleblower. They arrested him. They extradited him from New Jersey. They put an ankle monitor on him. They tried him. And luckily, a jury there was not taking it. This town is so sick of the corruption. So if you get a chance, read that article. You won't be able to put it down. Much more to come on that. But today, by ROPE request, we're talking a bit about measures of performance in public education. So let me sort of click to something else. So Student testing has historically been the standard by which we decide how schools are doing, how we assess school performance at the site level, at the classroom level, at the district level, and as a state. That's been going on in the United States for a long time. Since 1900, there have been college entrance examinations, and the SATs as a standardized test have been in place in the US and widely used since 1926.
Wow, I didn't realize they went back that far.
Yes, so we've had some really great measures. And if you think about the Iowa tests, I don't know about Oklahoma. I didn't go to primary school in Oklahoma, but the Iowa test
when I was a kid, yeah.
Well, that went on. That was an 80-year run of some really consistent measurement that could be compared to past years. It could be compared across the United States. So we really knew if our kids were learning and how that compared. Then we went into, once standardized testing was commonplace, we started getting legislation like the Elementary and Secondary Education Act in 1965, which was making it more mandated, and then No Child Left Behind in 2001. Yeah. That expanded testing requirements. Yeah. And shortly after that, we saw U.S. education start to fall in the global rankings in quality. Then we got the Every Student Succeeds Act in 2015. And that it was in the midst of the nosedive of US public education. So ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, it took steps to reduce standardized testing. And according to the NEA, who was the big lobbying push behind Every Student Succeeds, it, quote, decouples testing and high stakes decision making. So we're trying to pull performance away from funding here. We no longer want to talk about if a school is not performing well, do they deserve the funding? And that's one of the underlying themes of ESSA in 2015. And you can think about politically what was starting to happen in 2015.
I'd rather not, but thank you.
It sort of eliminated the accountability and funding consequences for really lousy outcomes in schools. And when I say the US was dropping, it was really dropping in performance. Up until even the early 1990s, the US was the tops in public education in many indicators. And then in just 15 years, if you go from there to 2009, the US went from top of the top to 18th of the 36 industrialized nations in education. And now we're one of the biggest spenders with some of the worst results. So the fall after a long history of great public education has been really sad. So what happens is when things starts to go bad and you have a really large government, they start to overhaul. Instead of improving, listening, changing, they start to change how performance is measured and reported. And that's what we saw. So all of these changes, they're always presented as this improvement for students, although realistically and observably, we see student performance decreasing. They make it really impossible to compare over time, because if you're measuring A, B, and C for 10 years, and then suddenly you shift and you're measuring it a little differently in a more complicated way, you're measuring D, E, and F, I can't compare to what.
Well, now let's point out too, though, that they did the same thing with the ACT. So in the 70s, they basically restructured the test. And then again, in the 90s, they restructured the test. So you can't even really go back and compare ACT rates. And they wanted that to happen because you could see because I've looked at the scores, you could see in 1970 about 5.7. The ACT score started to drop. And then as soon as they realigned the test, then they start, going up again or going, at least sideways. So it's a sleight of hand.
That's a great way to put it. And now I'm probably going to make your brain explode, Jenny, but you can see the same thing about the SATs and the Iowa tests in 2011, 2012. They started changing up the great gold standard Iowa test to make it more closely aligned with Common Core. Exactly. And then in 16, 17, they came out with a new generation Iowa test that followed the Every Student Succeeds Act. So we see this legislation pushing the way, and then the measures become more less comparable nationally. They tend to mask these overwhelming and collective learning deficits that sort of point to the systematic failures.
Well, let me go back really fast before you go forward. So, because most people don't understand, and who would want to, the convoluted bull crap that is education legislation and all of that. But with No Child Left Behind, with Bush, No Child Left Behind, you had to test 95% of all children. So you had to test them. That was the first thing. But then the second thing was you literally couldn't have, if you test 95% of kids, you couldn't have them dropping below 99% proficiency, or then, the federal money started to dry up. Well, you're never going to meet that benchmark. I mean, it's just never going to happen, number one. So what do educational institutions do? They devise ways of cheating the measure, because it's all about the money. It's never about the kids and what they're learning. It's always about the money and how much money they get. So then you start figuring out how to cheat it. And that, I believe, is where, because there have always been, cheats to try to make the kids look better on state tests or whatever test it is. That's just kind of the way it is. But this huge volume of cheating came because of No Child Left Behind. And I think that's when you really go back and you look, that's where we started to take that nosedive.
You're spot on.
I know.
We can end this podcast because you're spot on. That is the entire crux.
That's what I like to hear. Keep feeding me that.
Well, but I want to say, you're using the word cheating. To me, that's a little harsh, even though, yes, that's what they're doing. They're just using statistics to their own favor. It's
that's
just like
cheating, Michael.
Well, yeah, it is in a way, but if you're the one writing the rules, if you're making the rules, you can always win. So they're able to make the rules on how these things look to us.
Oh, I get your point.
So they win.
Okay, I get your point. So they just rewrite the rules.
Yeah.
And that's not like what we would consider to be cheating, but yet it's so okay. I get you. I'll give you that one.
That's what
you're right.
Okay.
The keepers of the rules are, and I think part of what Michael's alluding to too is their communication of these measures and the lack of real transparency in the way they lay out some of these websites and things to show you how your child's school's doing leads to what look like strategic misassumptions.
Strategic BS.
Yes. So what I would say is, first, if you look at the screen here, just understanding in Oklahoma how this manifested, these changes, the changes in the legislation. And now, as we talked about, how are we going to finesse this to make it look as though things are improving when they're not? So in Oklahoma, when we look at some of these statistics, keep in mind that grades 3 through 8 really get the bulk of the testing. So the kids in grades 3 through 8 are tested every year in math, English language arts, and then in 5th and 8th grade science. So you don't get much from your high schoolers. Now in high schoolers, grade 11, that junior year is the crazy testing year for juniors, is the ACT, science, and US history. But really in the data, we don't get much about US history here. So,
yeah, that was always when I first started in this, what would you call it, venue in 2008, that's what I went in to do, is to point out that we're not getting any civics in public schools. We don't get civics. We get social studies. But social studies isn't history, so we're not really learning history. Social studies is the Marxist way of manipulating history so that it sounds really great and it tickles the ears of younger people, but it's meaningless. So that's what social studies is. But yes, you're right, Katie, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is just, that's, I think, probably the biggest issue out there is we wonder what's going on and why kids don't know what you can't even ask them what form of government do we have. Well, it's a democracy. Well, it's not really democracy. No, I mean, they're democratic principles, but it's a republic. They don't even know that. So I will get off my soapbox. You've got so much more to say, but thank you for pointing that out.
You're okay. The other thing I want people to really know when they look at who's tested and where this data is coming from, that there are now two types of tests. There's your general state tests for kids, and then there are what's called alternate assessments. And those are a measure of achievement of alternate academic standards. So these are lowered standards of the state curriculum for children with the most significant cognitive abilities. So we have for some special ed kids, there are some lowered bars now that are included in the data, but they're supposed to be very, very limited. So you're going to see some data that says students with disabilities. Those are kids on IEPs.
Yeah.
IEPs are 18.9% of students now in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I was going to say IEPs now are used for everything and their dog.
They are. And in the law, in the federal legislation, it says no more than 1% of the state students can be tested using this alternate assessment. But all of the states are putting in for this allowed exemption to go over that percentage. So the law looks like they're limiting this to the kids with the greatest intellectual deficits. Truly, that makes sense. But in Oklahoma last year, 177 districts asked for exemptions. That's 1 out of every 3 districts has an exemption. So the data you're seeing in a lot of this are a lowered bar. They're not the regular testing. So they always sort of have a loophole in the background. So that's something that I want to watch. And if you look at this is supposed to be the criteria for allowing, it's called the OAAP, the Oklahoma Alternate Assessment Program. And it's supposed to be that every year the IEP team meets to identify this, and then they work this checklist. So if you say no, let me make this bigger.
Yeah, I was going to say Control Plus. There you go.
If you say no to any of these things about intellectual disabilities, behavioral deficits, is there IEP in all content areas? Are they going to require lifelong family support to be able to function? If you say no to any of the questions above, the child is not supposed to be qualified to take an alternate assessment. And
okay, no to any of them.
To any of them.
Okay.
The strange thing on this government form is the last thing here isn't even a question, but you have to say yes or no to it. It says the decision to place the student on an alternate assessment is based on the student's disability, not excessive absences, language, social, cultural, economic differences, or administrative reasons like you don't expect this kid to do well on the test. So that's not even you have to say yes or no to, I don't know how to answer that.
Well,
so
how do you answer a statement, yes or no?
I don't know. But what I'm saying on this is the law looks like it's keeping them testing the bulk of kids or 99% or more of the kids in a standard way. I just believe this is ripe for continued.
Yeah.
As Michael, I'll call it cheating. You can call it what you called it. But I want people to be aware of that before we sort of talk about this.
Who do we point the finger at? Is this the legislature? Is this just the SDE? I mean, who's actually lowering this bar?
Yeah.
Or allowing this stuff to happen?
Well, it's both. So it's the federal law that left this loophole. And then the state itself. Last year, the OSDE put in, you can see on their website that they put in for an exemption of this, and they included this spreadsheet that had supposedly sort of this critical data based on this checklist for each one of the 177 districts. And I don't see that they're telling you these really solid reasons why a child shouldn't take the standard assessment. So those are the districts that I'm going to be watching to see who's got this really high percent of alternate testing going on. And I'm telling you, I'm getting information in the background. The reason I even looked into this is because there is cheating. There's abject cheating going on. And I'm working the data and we're going to uncover it because Parents deserve to know how their kids are actually doing and how their schools are performing.
Well, and let me add to that though. Absolutely parents do, but taxpayers do.
Yes.
We fund these institutions. We fund them. Why? Well, you know why. I mean, that was the dumbest thing I've probably ever said. But I mean, obviously we know that the money is kind of the bottom of this. These people want to keep their money. I mean, that's what they want. And so they're going to work the measures to make sure, however that happens, that they do.
And
call me cynical or call me, putting down public education, but you cannot tell me. You can't tell me that I'm not right when you look at what's going on in public education today. Shoot, I quit in 2002 teaching. It isn't even, I wouldn't go back to teaching if you held a gun to my head. I'd just go, okay, hi, Jesus. I mean, it wouldn't even, but it is, I was just talking to a friend of mine who is a music teacher, talking to her last night, and she said, well, I got to go because not only do I have to put all my instruments away and do all of this stuff, but I still have to do all my Marzano questionnaire. And that's that grading teachers thing that we tried to get rid of in 2015 that they put in. It is the worst thing. It's run more teachers out of the profession, and it's meaningless. And all it does is put the state's thumb down on the top of the head of the teacher. It's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. So I'm having a small technical difficulty, but I'm going to keep rolling. We'll figure it out. If it stops spinning, it stops spinning. So let me say this. In Oklahoma, 2015, now we know they're going to monkey with the measures. When Every Student Succeed Act comes into play, and Joy Hoffmeister took office, took office for 8 years. Yeah. We immediately, the OSDE took a break from the controversial the letter grades for schools and districts. So a school's an A, B, C, D, or F.
I remember that.
That was an uproar. So they just sort of took a break because the education establishment, the districts, the Administrators Association, the OEA, the Teachers Union, did not like it. And then in 2019, they rolled out brand new measures that were revamped Oklahoma School Report Cards online system. So that's at oklaschools.com. Oh, I'm still spinning. This is making me crazy. I'm so sorry.
You might get out here. Let me try this. If there's any way for you to get out of some of the windows, that may be what's doing it. Yeah. You may have too many windows open.
It's got me completely locked up.
So you're completely locked.
Yes, and it's on my end and it's not on theirs. So that's not good.
Okay, so hold on just a second.
I'm going to stop sharing screen. No, I can't. I can't do anything. I may have to come back to you.
Okay, no, hold on. You think you may be getting out and getting back in and fix it?
I don't know.
Because
I'm afraid if you get out, you may not even be able to get back in. Why don't we
may just close out, just remove that share screen altogether and just reload the share screen.
Yeah, try that.
Yeah, the problem is it's not letting me do anything.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove it, and then I'm going to do what you were doing. So I'm going to go to the there we go. Okay, you'll just have to tell me where to go.
Okay, this is going to be interesting. Okay,
it will be, but you're going to have to.
We got it.
Yes.
Okay, so what happened from there is they changed up the measures. We used to look at the assessment scores, state assessment scores, and they sort of changed everything up on it. Now they were talking about assessment scores being performance level snapshots.
Oh, I remember that.
Okay.
But you know what? You probably better draw the conclusion there between those two things. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, how different they are.
Yes, I am going to draw that conclusion.
Okay, sorry.
So, no, that's okay. So what we'll look at first to talk through this is what's front and center now? So if you'll go, Jenny, I'm so sorry about this. If you'll go and click on View State, Oklahoma State Report Card, the darker, okay? So what this tells you is all about the state of Oklahoma. And you'll notice the top indicators right there is perfect, are academic achievement and academic growth. So you're not, you sort of assume that this has to do with pure student performance, but it really does not. So academic achievement is really a very complicated measure that half of the measure, the system will tell you in their definition, has to do with student assessments. So it has
So
to
half of this is student assessments.
Half of this is student assessments, but where we used to look at student assessments, and if we would say, yes, the district is at a 47%, that meant 47% of kids are proficient in, either math, English language arts, or a combination of those things, science, or a combination of those things. So I tend to talk in the combination when I say they're proficient. It's in the core areas. And that would mean there are 4 areas. There's advanced at the top, 4 grading categories of the state assessments. Okay. So there's advanced at the top, and then there is proficient, and then there is basic, and then there's below basic. So the top 2 categories, okay, it's killing me that I can't.
Does that say that under more details?
So where you can go is go up to the top.
Okay.
And go to About Our State.
Okay.
This is where we've hidden state assessments now. And you can go down to Assessment Performance. So now scroll down toward the bottom, and you will see, keep going. So that's assessment performance for the state, but keep going to the bottom.
Okay.
And you'll see just what looks like right there, an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
So you see advanced, proficient, basic, and below basic at the top. If you ran a line right down the middle, the top 2 are proficient and the bottom 2 are not proficient. And so in academic achievement, that is not the case. Academic achievement, half of the score is test scores that include basic, that 3rd category. So if you go to the very top of that chart, they're including the 35% of children who are not proficient in academic achievement.
Okay.
Which does not make a lot of sense. Those kids are not reaching the bar of proficiency. Yet the district, the school, the state is getting this sort of public credit for academic achievement and points going to that indicator.
Oh, interesting.
So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. When you look at the chart and you first log on to the site, things look better than they actually are. Now, the other half of that indicator of academic achievement, which seems to be forefront in everything now, the other half breaks down students into priority student groups. So we have some identity politics coming in based on federal law, because the funding requires that you report in these student groups. So this is a bit of a forcing of separating out different types of kids and their performance levels. Now, the priority student groups, they look at student groups such as ethnic groups, but then they also look at things like economically advantaged, that kind of thing. But if you look at the second half of this, 50% of the score for academic achievement, once they break those kids into those groups, the state now has the option to lower the bar for what is proficient. And
okay.
So when we look at where they've lowered the bar, and this is what I desperately wanted to show you.
Yeah.
The ethnically grouped children. So you've got the Hispanic, Asian Pacific, white, Black, American Indian, Black, 2 or more races. Mm-hmm. Only the Black students have a lowered, what they call a lowered target of achievement that they're getting credit for. The schools are and that's below proficiency.
Oh, good night. So then that 58% score below basic is way worse than 58%.
It's interesting because it feels a lot like racism to take one group, which is absurd to say that any child based on ethnicity has some kind of a lower potential. That bothers me to my soul.
It always has bothered me. And I don't know why. And yet you've got the people who hate bullying, who push inclusion, who love DEI, doing this very same thing and standing up and defending it every day of the week. And that's the thing I can't even figure out. You listen to the NEA, you listening to the AFT, you listen to these people. COSA, OSSBA, they're all in on this racist garbage while they're saying, oh, but it's only to be able to help the kids. Well, if you're helping them, how does putting them in a category in the first place actually even do that?
It doesn't. And what it feels like is it's giving schools an out for not fully serving those students in the classroom, that those students aren't doing well. And if you look at the places where there are a larger number of Black students, it's places like Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Lawton. So these really big school districts that are historically grossly underperforming, it gives them a little bit of a boost.
Yeah.
The other thing about academic achievement that we really need to look at is that it doesn't say
we didn't even look at English or math or any, because that's just ridiculous how bad that is.
I don't think people understand when we say a high performing school in Oklahoma. Well, it's a little bit of being the best of the not so great, because if we only have 26% of students that are proficient in core areas, what are we really talking about here? The other thing about academic achievement that is a little disconcerting, statistically unpure, is that English language learners are excluded from this calculation for 3 years. So essentially, it's masking the effect of illegal immigration on our public school system.
Yeah.
And why would we do that? We have a huge amount of funding going to those programs.
Yeah.
But we're not going to talk about how they're affecting school performance overall.
Hey, let's do something really fast, because I hear you've got some background noise too. So why don't we do this? I'm going to pull you out.
Okay.
And then you get back in and see if maybe that allows you to be able to come in with if that'll fix the problem and then get rid of the background noise. Will that work?
Actually, I think the background noise is Michael.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh, it sure is. Now that's amusing. Sorry about that. Do you want to try me taking you out to see if coming back in will work?
I have a feeling I'm going to have to reboot.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well, you tell me what's going on, because we've got a nice audience and I'm sure they're on here to hear what you have to say. So
so let's just scroll up.
Okay.
I just want people to know this is the number one standard, right? Oh, wait, go down just a little bit.
Okay.
I want it to show specifically, keep going to the next area right here. Okay. So this is assessment performance. So this is pure state testing and the kids who are proficient. Again, these kids are proficient. So we're looking at all of the school sites in Oklahoma across this spectrum on the graph on the right, and how they're distributed around the mean, around the average. So that bold line in the middle is the average proficiency for school sites and districts across the state. And you see there's this clustering from 0% proficiency in some districts up to about 72% proficient. And if you look on that high end, it gets very sparse. The vast majority of our schools are under 50% proficiency for students. And I think that's something we never really say out loud, that we're actually not meeting the mark for most kids in Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah, there's no way. I mean, if you look at this, you've got 41 schools that rate a 26. 41.
Mhm. And to say that, what's funny about this data, there are schools that are 0% proficiency. If you are sending your child to one of those schools, they are statistically
Oh.
doomed.
And look, 12 schools rate 0. It says it right here.
So
Cave
those,
Springs, Kinta,
yep,
Terrell, Eagletown, Emerson Alternative in Oklahoma City, Putnam Heights Academy Middle School, Putnam Heights Academy High School. Good night alive. Tulsa Met Middle School, Tulsa Met High School has a 0. Hello, people. 0%
proficiency. Statistically, sending a child to those schools means they will not have anything close to what
learn
they
zip.
need.
Nothing.
Right. And think about what we know about third grade. If they're not reading on par by third grade, the academic slide accelerates. So this is, and I like that I'm seeing this reaction on your faces, because this is the real data. So now I want to take you to the measure that they have up front now. You have to, did you see how far you had to dig down to get this data?
Yeah,
you
because
had
we
to go
right here,
right?
And all the way. So, and you would think it would be under indicators, right? So what's under academic achievement under indicators then, if it's not actual assessment performance?
So under, you're way down there. Those are your state tests. Now go back up to indicators where you would think, if I'm a parent going, how's my state doing?
Right.
Now, number one is academic achievement. Go ahead and touch on that, click on that, and go down to the same graph. You'll see this right there. That's the distribution. Now we're talking academic achievement. This looks
looks pretty good.
Not
there
great,
are 15
but it looks
schools at 100%.
It's almost like they massage this measure to make it look like normal performance.
Like a bell-shaped curve.
Right. So think about what we said. Half of this score for this academic indicator is student assessments, but now it's not proficiency. It also includes kids who are basic, below the bar. That's 35% of the kids in this state, or were below the bar, and they went ahead and threw them in here as if that is some kind of achievement for schools to keep them below the bar. The other half of this indicator is breaking kids down by identity politics, and then perhaps setting behind the scenes a lower bar for proficiency.
So I just noticed it says schools score 0% on academic achievement, but how many did we just show were 0 on testing?
Yeah. Well, that's where they have that little caveat in there where they have, it's pretty basic. You're either advanced, proficient, or you're not proficient. They have that other category in there of being basic, which is still below proficiency. So all these numbers include those basics, so they can manipulate that graph and show parents, who just might happen to come on here. Oh yeah, they're doing okay.
That's exactly it. And it is front and center. It has been since 2019. It makes it very convenient that you can't really compare to past years, because we rewrote all of our Oklahoma standards and now our indicators are different. So this is what I feel like parents should know. And again, Jenny, there actually are schools that have a 0%. If you notice, there's a bar there, but they don't pop up. I don't know if that's a technical error.
It says 0 schools score 0% is what it says.
Now slide over to the bar that says 2%.
I did. And so it says
Cave
Springs.
Yep. Go ahead to 2%.
Is this 2%? Hold on.
No, it's way down there. It's maybe that second bar or third bar.
Second bar.
Yeah, third bar in. 2% academic achievement at Western Heights. How much has this publication talked about Western Heights, who might be the wokest school district in the state? They hired a drag queen with past porn charges to run an elementary school, who then hired other folks who have one that was caught in a sting, trying to solicit sex from 15-year-olds online. we were 8 articles into this, and now we see academic achievement is 2% there. This is supposed to be the indicator that makes them look good.
And that's a massage number on top of it.
It is. So if people go back to the article and read the article, it will show you sort of what happens with this indicator. So it's clearly was intended to make schools in the state as a whole look better than they are. But we find on the grossly underperforming districts, it can't even do that.
Yeah.
Their academic achievement actually falls lower than their state assessment scores.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting statistical paradox. In other cases, with your schools that we consider high performing schools in Oklahoma, which again, the highest one is 72% proficiency. With those, academic achievement makes them look grossly better, anywhere from about 25 to 40% better on that indicator.
Well, I'm just curious what the that's interesting too. Look, it says 15 schools score 100%. See that right in the little, when you roll over it, 15 schools. So then you click on it. You get Maple, Cleora, Pioneer, and Oakdale are 100. Well, I'm not sure, but I don't think 4 is 15.
Well, let me tell you why that is. So on this particular indicator, they're listing them as districts. So they're using the district data, which sometimes that helps weaker schools if they're lumped in.
Yeah.
So those 4 districts represent 15 school sites.
Wow. Got it.
Because we're still looking at the state level report for this.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we go look at places like, why don't you go up to the top? I just want parents to know how they can. If you go up to the top and go ahead, and the best way to do it is go and click on that main logo in the top left. So now we're back to Oklahoma Schools main site. So now go into that search bar, if you would, Jenny, and put in Deer Creek. Everyone knows that's a high performing school. That is an economically advantaged area, comparatively speaking, in Oklahoma. And let's look at Deer Creek this is all the information it gives you. How many students go there? Who's running the school? Who's the superintendent? What are their schools? They have 7 elementary schools and 1 middle and 1 high. So now if you'll go click under indicators, and let's take a look at academic achievement there. So this is the number one thing that pops up. They're at 85% academic achievement. And if you see on the scale there, that's high in Oklahoma, for Oklahoma. But we've talked about what that means. So now go ahead and go up again and go under About Our District and down to Assessment Performance. Remember the 85 number. Slide down. That's just participation. That's how many kids were tested. If you keep sliding down, there's some demographics. Keep sliding down, boom. So really, less than half of their kids are proficient.
But they were 85 achievement.
So that's just an example. And I am not picking on Deer Creek Public Schools. I'm sure they're doing a lot of things right. But that is an example when you look at the low end of Western Heights, economically disadvantaged, to sort of the high end of economically advantaged and what we would call a high performing district. Most of the kids
look at,
are not
compared to the state, I guess, they're knocking the ball right out of the park, but that's pathetic. So any parent's going to look at academic achievement and go, oh, this is great. Deer Creek's an 87 or an 85. And then they have no idea that the state testing performance is that freaking dismal. That's just terrible.
So I am encouraged that I see some things coming out of the State Department of Education where they're focused purely on state assessment. I've seen some things there where they're going back to, no, let's talk about if kids are really proficient. So I'm encouraged by that. But this is still the number one place where parents find out how well their kids are doing. Okay, let's go up. I want to show you one more thing. Go up to, and let's go to overview. That top, okay. So when you first go into your district, this is what you're going to see. And if you roll down, rarely are people going to go past this. Oh no, it's not there anymore. Okay, never mind. Let's go to indicators.
Okay.
I don't know why that's not there now. Academic growth. Go down to academic growth.
Okay.
This is another indicator that's out there that sometimes looks even better for districts. And it's supposed to show a student's progress from year to year. So whether they were advanced or they were below basic, did they make progress? The problem when you dig in the background about the statistical measure is that they have a matrix that shows where they were last year and where they were this year and what points are applied toward this. You can actually go from second grade, say, with a score that is just above proficient. And the next year you could be falling farther behind when third grade comes, because that's what we see is they're falling a little farther behind each year.
Right.
You can fall a little farther behind in the third grade and you can score as basic. And the district will still get some points for academic growth for that child.
Okay.
So it's a very complicated system of awarding points to a school or a district, even in lots of cases where kids move backward. So, and this is sort of what it looks like. It's showing where they were last year and where they were this year. And if you dig into the background and there's a sheet that sort of shows you this, you're going to get partial points, even if a child moves down as much as 2 rungs in this. But if they move up even just a little, nuanced, there are significant points for that.
Ooh,
So
they actually have one that says performance over time here under grade levels.
they do. And that's when you really dig into this, you start to see a very different picture of what's
Wow,
happening.
grade 4 is something crazy's going on. And I mean, it actually looks like the only one that's doing any good. What is that, grade 6?
Well, where we should be really concerned when we look at the data that we do have over time, even based on these massage statistics, so you have to remember that, we should be very worried about our junior hires.
Yeah, no kidding.
Very worried about our junior hires. That is sort of seems like where they're falling off the cliff that's been headed downhill for some time.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So that's really just a little overview. It feels a lot like government education is finding a way to further reward mediocrity and even failure by complicating these measures for student performance.
Well, I would say I sent you something the other day. I don't know if I can find it again, but
yes.
Well, then I want to make a point real quick. It looks like just looking at this graph here, you know, those numbers between like 2019 and 22, they're all, you know, decently straight, but, you know, didn't they not report stuff for COVID? Didn't Joy come out one of those years and say, we're not even going to report? I mean, I think that would probably have pretty significant downward impact on this graph. It probably looks a lot better here than what it actually is.
It's huge. That's almost a discussion in itself for an hour. They basically said, we're not going to test 1 year. And then the following year, they said, we're going to test, but we're not going to count it, essentially.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got a 2-year lag there where these numbers should probably be going down and then down from there even.
Well, we talk a lot about during COVID, how a lot of systems embraced insanity because there was a benefit to them in it. And we talk about the healthcare system and hospitals. They embraced treatment protocols that were insanity, but there was a huge financial incentive in it. When you think about public education during COVID, there's a huge incentive in not having these measures of accountability for a couple of years. You get to do this reset. You get to not be responsible for year-over-year progress or lack thereof. So closing down schools, not testing, when you think about the insanity that allowed that to happen from the people who are charged with educating our children, it starts to make a little more sense. If things aren't going well for us, and in Oklahoma, under State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Joy Hoffmeister, We went from, I believe, what was an 18th in some indicators to a 49th in education in some areas. And there are several ways that they measure that, several organizations that do that. But there's no way around the fact that we were in the fastest nosedive of almost any state during that time.
Wow.
And then they turned off testing.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to just make this point because this is these are ACT scores. Remember where we talked about they were recentered or whatever. So here are ACT. So look, 1972, look where scores were, right? Way up there.
Mm-hmm.
We had a 452 that was high. Now a 510 is high, right?
Right.
A 510 is high, but that's just because they recentered the means to make it look better. So look how far we've dropped in verbal scores on the ACT.
Yes. And then
over the years.
And you remember when they started to take out the written test requirements, that's optional, all of these things to.
Yeah. And I hope parents know that and really see that. Look at the scores over here, look at the scores over here, but look how the curve actually goes. It's just pathetic. Starting in 1976, it was just a nightmare. I mean,
that is such a telling graph.
It
about
is
the overall. And the thing that is so valuable about that graph is that's the kids at the end of the pre-K to 12 spectrum, what they have learned overall and how prepared they are for life. Interesting reflection on what we see going on in the world with young people, for sure. So
I'm trying to find the piece that I sent you, because when we originally started doing this, changing the grade card, the school grade card. And I actually looked at all the indicators and, really went through and did a pretty deep dive in them. And it was so full of garbage.
Michael, I think we're cursed. I think one doesn't want us to know. Jenny, you're coming in and out.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, a little bit.
Little bit, just a little bit. We're so, someone's not helping us with technology today.
What? Who wants, seriously, the powers that be don't want people to know this stuff. It's absolutely a fact. And it's taking me forever to see if I can find this on our original blog, because I'm searching by grade card. There it is.
Okay.
Ta-da! Found it.
Oh.
Except now my share screen's gone. Oh, hey, let's try to add yours back and see if does it work now?
Let's see. You know what? Let's see. It's not spinning, but hang on. Let me see if I can close some things out and go from there. No, it doesn't work. It's something going on. I have no idea. I've never experienced this, but we'll get it fixed for next time.
Well, but you never know what happens. You never can tell.
No.
Okay, so I wanted to show you guys this because this is originally what I wrote when we first started doing the A through F. So this is 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally went through the State Department of Education's A through F report card because that's what we were doing at that point in time. And it really was, I don't know if you guys can find this. This is on our old blog, our blog spot. And it basically explains how all of these measures were coming in. Calculation of student achievement. The scores assigned to represent proficiency levels do not seem to correspond to any recognizable metric.
Exactly. You can see where this started.
If a study can't be replicated, it can't be reliable. And in this case, it was just impossible for the authors to decide how the categories of proficiency levels were determined because there was no clear justification for why these categories were assigned. That alone should be the nail in the coffin of this A through F system, as categories used to assign specific value are just arbitrary.
That's it. They don't look arbitrary when they're presented to parents and taxpayers, but behind the scenes, I believe that's the case. So let me tell you this entire discussion and digging into the data, it's something I've been thinking about, but a school board member from a sizable school district reached out to me, had read some things I had written, and wanted to ask me some questions, which I found really interesting. So we ended up getting on the phone, and this school board member said, I'm really concerned because my district, really considers itself high performing, and we give raises at the superintendent district level. All these people, we give these raises based on performance, and I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. So I walked the school member through the data like we just did, and that person was stunned.
Yeah, probably.
At the lack of proficiency. And that's what's happening here is we're basing rewards for those running our schools on these metrics that are not the pure metrics of very trackable, are kids proficient or not. And you should know that I asked the school board member, after we'd gone through this, when you went through your mandated training with the Oklahoma School Board Association, the OSSBA, did they talk about student performance? Did you see any of this data? And the answer was no. So I went to the OSSBA website and I looked at their required trainings, and there are areas you have to be trained in financial and ethical and that kind of thing. And then you can choose from other training in addition to the mandatory area, lots of things about assessing the performance of your superintendent, all of those kind of things. There is nothing in their training for school board members that has to do with this data and student performance. So
I'm shocked.
It's encouraging that the State Board of Education has now voted that the OSSBA is no longer the sole source for training for our elected officials on our local school boards. That is now opened up, and someone else can come in. And if that someone else is listening, this is the data that our school board members need to know.
Well, but I want to point out too, though, when we ran the bill to get OSSBA out of training teachers or school board members in Oklahoma, and we talked to a whole bunch of different places. We talked to help me, the schools that every county usually has, and they boy, man, my brain has gone completely out. We talked technical schools. We talked to people from technical schools who said things like, we've always had, school things that we could train school board members with here. That's never been a problem. That's there. Also, too, the state auditor has said, shoot, we have problems because they audit school districts, right? And they say, we don't want to have problems with school districts. We want school board members to be apprised of everything that's going on in terms of their budgets and how to structure a budget. We want that. We're happy to train them here at the assessor's office, at the
auditor's
office. They were happy to do that. So there have always been, and I just really want to say this because, again, I think we're glossing over the main problem. There have always been places for school board members to be trained other than OSSBA, but the school superintendents basically say, well, you need to go, to the OSSBA. I know 2 school board members, and that's exactly what they said. Well, you need to go to OSSBA to get trained. So it's the superintendents that we're fighting here. It's not even anybody else.
Agreed. And that's part of what the power structure in public schools. And I'm an advocate of local control, but somehow we've been bamboozled, and our school board members think that they work for the superintendent in the district and that they're there to support their choices.
Correct.
And again, how much does that have to do with that effectively all training's been going through one organization?
Right.
Yes. So that's a little bit of an overview. We could go much deeper, but maybe that's for another time.
Well, I mean, we got a whole hour's worth in there amid technical difficulties about that. But I think, you know what, honestly, what can we do about this? What is the best way to stop this? Is it parents en masse going to their schools and saying, you know, no, I want to know what the grades are. Give me the grades. And then the schools always say, well, but we don't even get the scores until the end of the year. And then we can't really do anything with the scores once we have them at the end of the year. And that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the whole thing is so upside down, backwards and sideways. I don't know. How do you get a fork in it to fix it even?
Well, I think a great start would be the data that we've just said today. If you're showing up at your school board meeting, or you're bringing this data to parent-teacher conferences, or you're constantly working in the reality of what the data is, no matter what they're putting forward, if you go onto this oklaschools.com, if you search your district, your child's school, if you go to About Our School or About Our District, and you scan down to assessment performance, it's a drill down, but if you get to assessment performance.
Okay, let's do this before we get off of here. I just started sharing the tab again. So let's go back and do the whole thing again so everybody knows how to do it from the beginning.
From the very bebeginning.
Let's start.
So you are at oklaschools.com.
No, this is schoolreportcards.ok.gov.
Oh, okay. It'll go there from Oklahoma Schools. Okay.
Yes, it will. But I just want to put this in so that you can go directly to it and you can search it. I mean, I just searched it a second ago and it came right up.
Perfect.
So, but let me put it in there so that we know, you know, where to go. It's schoolreportcards.ok.gov. Okay. Now what are we doing?
Now go into your search bar, search by school or district, and I want you to pick a district. Where would you like to know about? My kid goes to Oklahoma City. Actually, go back.
Okay.
Just do Oklahoma City, and it should pop up.
Okay. Oh, it does. Perfect. Okay.
So that's the whole district.
Okay.
And pick a school. We see Adams Elementary School there on the top of the elementary schools. Go ahead.
My daughter used to go to Britton Elementary School. So
there you go.
Pick Britton Elementary School.
Let's go to Britton Elementary School. And if you scan down, this is the front-facing data like we told you. So academic achievement and academic growth are first. They're going to tell you about English language proficiency, chronic absenteeism. You're not going to see anything really about the raw scores about kids being proficient. So go up. This is not where we want to stop our inquiry. Go to About Our Schools. Not that that isn't important data, but we want to keep it simple here. Assessment performance, way down the list. So, and keep scrolling. Don't be fooled by that number. That's just how many kids they tested. This is breakdown of student demographics here at Britton Elementary School. Keep going down. That's our assessment performance compared to the district and the state. And then keep scrolling down.
Let's look at English.
Sure.
So English is 4.6. Oh, they actually do pretty well. I mean, look, that's interesting. They're actually better in math than in English, probably because they have such a high Hispanic population. But that's interesting.
It is. That starts to tell you a lot about instruction at the school. They're stronger, even though it's low, they're stronger in math than they are in English.
Yeah.
Correct? So that tells you that. And then you can scroll down to the chart portion of this, and you can really get some information about exactly how many kids were advanced. What is that percentage, Jenny, of the advanced kids?
0.
Proficient, 13%.
Well, the highest proficient is 18.
Mm-hmm.
The highest basic looks like 39. And the highest below basic is 61%. 69. Oh gosh, no, I was wrong. 84. 84.
So the raw statistic to bring into your parent-teacher conference, or better, go to your school board meeting, is that 87% of the kids at the school are not proficient. That's the conversation we should be having. How do we change that?
Well, and here's the thing. They have, anybody can tell, is there anything else that we need to see before we get off of here?
There's quite a bit under each one of these indicators.
Your
you can
student,
click through.
You can look up your student.
Yes. So I don't know if parents know this, but to look up your student, you can go to, this will take you to a very separate site. This is the Oklahoma School Testing Program. And you, by your student's number, date of birth, you can look up your specific student's results. That used to come home to us in paper form.
Yes.
With the Iowa test and things. I'm not
it
sure.
Sure did.
I'm not sure if that's still happening at all schools. But that's where a parent, and if we really believe in parent engagement, this should be a discussion at every parent-teacher conference. This should be going back and forth, because this is how parents can support their children's strengths and deficits, and by knowing them.
Well, but again, here's the problem that happens. And I think parents are going to say this. So even if they did download that data and they took it in and they said, hey, my kid got a 7 on the, Oklahoma assessment for math, and here's what would happen. Well, we don't get those scores until the end of the year. So that's what was happening in the class before, when your child had Mrs. Smith. Now I'm Mrs. Jones. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's how that happens. How can you advise parents to get around that get around?
Well, when I talk to educators, they're doing other benchmarking that's more real time.
Okay.
Throughout the year. And that's sort of been the argument. We shouldn't even be doing these state tests. It's not fair to teachers. We've seen kids just put their head down during the test. That is not a measure of what that child has learned.
Correct.
I think both things are incredibly valuable. The thing about state assessments is there's a huge amount of accountability to it. And that seems what they're fighting about. This doesn't preclude them from doing those things and working with parents on a more real-time basis with kids throughout the year on their benchmarking. I mean, we see it, everything is simply from the AR testing points that are so common. Those show a certain level of comprehension and reading fluency and those kind of things. Is that being shared? A lot of schools are sharing that about student performance. So both things can be true, but we don't base superintendent salary increases on those through the year benchmarks. So I think those are probably a place where you'll see less manipulating than with these big statistics. Because again, this goes back to funding. This goes back to law and funding.
So how is it then that we can't seem to get the legislature, because this is always the way it is. The legislature always appropriates these millions and millions and millions. I mean, we're up past $5 billion in funding for Oklahoma public education. $5 billion. And when you say that to the education establishment, they say, well, you'll say, well, how much is enough? You already get $5 billion. Well, we'll tell you when enough is enough. So there's no accountability to that. Our legislature never provides any accountability to it. They just continue to shell out money for this. Why can't we ever tie assessment scores to funding?
So within the system that we were just in, the Oklahoma School Report Card system, they do give you information about finances. And the interesting thing about exploring that is that if anything, as someone who loves statistics, I could make a much more supported argument that more funding equals worse student performance outcomes.
There have been study after study that says that.
So if you'll look at what we call our high performing schools in Oklahoma, and then you look at our lowest performing schools, Western Heights is a great example. They spend far, far, far more than the state average per student. And even on the indicator that's supposed to make them look good of academic achievement, which we just went through what that actually means, they have a 2% academic achievement score.
Yeah. Well,
And we're paying for this.
Yeah,
We're
well,
literally paying for
Cool.
these people to uneducate, miseducate, de-educate our kids.
I think we had some difficulties. Now you're both frozen.
Uh-oh.
Are you back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I think honestly, it all goes back to the superintendent. The superintendent can control all those academic proficiencies within the district without a shadow of a doubt. That goes back to your school boards, who are basically
Mouthpieces.
Yeah, mouthpieces are completely subservient to the superintendent. They're just trained to do whatever the superintendent says. If those school boards held that superintendent responsible every week, every day, you don't have to micromanage the whole situation as a school board member, but if it was just a constant agreement by the school board themselves saying, hey, we're going to make number one priority in this district with my time on this school board is to increase the proficiency, and we're going to put a superintendent in place that's going to do that, you turn this thing around in just a matter of years.
Correct.
I agree.
And what this discussion brings forward too, there's been a lot of backlash. If you've watched the state school board meetings and the people that camp out all night to rail at the state school board, there's been a lot of backlash about the interventions with Tulsa Public Schools. Tulsa Public Schools now, the State Department of Education really has two tools that it can use in enforcement. It has teacher certifications, which also includes administrator certifications. And then it has district accreditations. Those are its only two tools. And we rarely, if ever, saw them use accreditation, which is tied to funding now, in any meaningful way. Well, Tulsa is coming before the school board every single month, and we're actually seeing that accountability reap what looks like some benefits for students. But it wasn't based on performance that got them there. It was based on violations of the new state law concerning critical race theory tenets being taught in a teacher training that went on after that law went into effect. Things like library books that are inappropriate for children. So those are the things that brought them under this review of their accreditation. But really, when we look at these scores, places like Oklahoma City, Western Heights, they should be coming before that board every month as well, because they're failing students.
Yeah. Well, I think it's there was a study that was released recently by an Oklahoma think tank, and it kind of hit the news. They didn't even really release it, and it kind of hit the news, and it showed that the gains that Tulsa Public Schools had been making, that had been touted by the State Department of Education, were not there. And I just think about what we're seeing, what we saw today about student indicators on student achievement based upon, district achievement and everything else. Something's got to be done. I mean, something has to be done. And I know that when we were in the throes of Common Core years ago, we had said we wanted to go back to the Iowa Test of Basic Skills and give the Iowa Test of Basic Skills once at the beginning of the year and then again at the end of the year. That actually tells volumes. That tells way more in terms of volumes than what we're doing right now. And there's always that, well, we can't afford that, but we can sure afford to give every junior the ACT.
Exactly.
So maybe we just need to decide what our priorities are.
Yes, and be real about the numbers. So parents, know your numbers and use them in those discussions.
Yeah.
Be involved with your school board. Know that your school board should be representing you and school board members. I talk to school board members who aren't aware. I'm asking for open records information, and they say, we don't have access to that. It has to be the superintendent. And I say, that is not what the law says. You can walk in as a school board member to any room in that district and say, I want the financials. I want the personnel reports. I want to see that investigation into inappropriate behavior. They don't believe that they are in charge.
Oh, no, they absolutely do not. And I'm going to argue this point too. I think a lot of them don't want to be in charge because it looks good. Oh, I had a seat on the school board. I did. But you know what? I've been on numerous boards, and I can tell you that the majority of people who sit on boards do not do their due diligence. They just think they're supposed to show up every meeting cold and go, okay, here I am.
Yep.
I mean,
the eyes.
It's tragic, but
I
it's
call them
true.
the eyes, the ones that second the motion and say aye.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally what they do. There's no due diligence. They don't go back and look at the budget reports. They don't go look at all of these things, and they're supposed to have a binder every meeting. And if you ask them before they went to the meeting about here, here's a question, and they can't answer that question, and you're supposed to have a meeting about it, then I think you've got a huge problem. But see, nobody ever checks up on the school board members because everybody just goes, well, they gave my kid an award for 8th grade reading. I hate to say anything.
Well, and for school board members, I do know some very brave school board members, and
we need more.
It takes a lot of bravery in your own community to stand up and buck this. So I respect that. And I do know some that do that and demand the information.
Well, this is good.
Okay.
I mean, we just need to keep pressing more, and we're lucky to have you honestly visit because you are so good at getting out this information and enlightening people as to what's going on. But here's the thing. We've had a huge audience today. You guys, you have to share the video. You have to tell your grandkids, your kids who are raising your grandkids, what's going on. You have to tell your neighbors. You have to tell your friends. You have to tell people what's going on, because if you just watch it and go, oh my gosh, that's terrible, I had no idea that was going on, that doesn't solve any of our problems. The only thing that solves the problems is getting the information out. It's like I've said 100 times, I don't even really want to do this, but God told me a year and a half ago, my people perish for lack of knowledge, and you're perishing for lack of knowledge. Share this info.
Well, and it should give just enough motivation to, when you go on that school report card system, that they're purposefully, not directing you straight to that proficiency data. You have to go within a menu, to go down to the bottom of another page in order to even find it. I mean, that should make you upset enough that they're not even being honest with how they present that information in the first place.
Yeah, it's true. Or transparent. They're not transparent. Yeah, for sure.
Well, in closing, small preview of coming attractions. This publication has proof that some unscrupulous districts, and I do not say most or all, I'm saying some, are cheating on state assessments.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
And it's just not surprising at all. Because when you say, hey, we're tying your money to performance, all you're doing is saying, hey, cheat as much as you can to get as much money as you can. That's all we're saying.
Yep. So that is coming. We will do our due diligence and we will confirm all of it, but look for that in the future because our kids deserve more.
Well, and don't forget, you're going to be back next month and we're going to have quite, I think, an explosive.
I think we are. We're going to go back to our harmful coaching series and we're going to see if we can have some of our very brave whistleblowers. I don't call them victims. They're survivors and they're absolute warriors for the kids of today to talk about child sexual abuse within public education and to share their stories a little more. There's been a lot going on with that.
And that will be almost a month from now. So that'll be on Wednesday, the 19th. So you won't want to miss that.
Great.
So Wednesday, June 19th, we'll have some of those ladies on, and I think it'll be a great show. So you don't want to miss that.
Okay. Again.
All right, Visit, as usual, please keep in contact with us. You know that we always, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, please go to rope2.org. You can see it on Michael's and right there, rope2.org, and sign up for our newsletter. We always make sure to put any of our local Oklahoma news transparency people in our newsletter so that we can promote that. We're just super happy to do that. And we do always try to make sure we get Visit stuff in our newsletter every day. So if you go to rope2.org, you'll see a box that pops up, type your email in there that you want that newsletter sent to, and it'll come directly to you. So again, thank you so much, Visit. We will talk to you again next month, and then, just kind of follow what you're doing until then.
Thank you. God bless and keep.
Thanks. Talk to you soon. We're so lucky to have her because we're not getting have you seen this in a local paper? Have you seen this in the Oklahoma?
No, and I wanted to make that point.
World?
Yeah, and I wanted to make that point. Look at what a single citizen journalist can do. I mean, look at the power and just how honest and transparent and open and just, at times shocking, really shocking, what a single person can do. I mean, that just shows you, we don't have to have thousands of people, just awake to everything that's going on. If we just have one or two of these Visit journalists, I mean, Mary does an absolutely fantastic job of exposing and look how much of her stuff has gone nationwide.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, but again, it's up to everybody else to share that information, because this isn't mainstream media here, and we need to get that out and promote that. So please do that. You do know that we'll have some clips up. I've got a couple of places that I know that I'm going to clip today. And one of them is Michael's rant about school boards.
Hey.
It's important to understand, because people just don't get it, that there are laws that surround what public school boards do, and they have the power, not the superintendent. They hire and fire the superintendent. And our school boards simply, by and large, will not accept the responsibility for their job, nor do they even accept the responsibility to find out what their job is if they don't know. They just don't care, I guess. I don't know how to.
Well, people need to realize that these school boards are in 100% control of those school districts, period.
Yeah.
Every single hire, fire process, everything that has to do with the budget, everything that has to do with anything goes through the voting process of that school board on purpose. But the caveat to it all is all these school board members are curated by some type of administrator in the past, getting people ready. Hey, you should run for school board here. We've got a seat coming up next year or the year after that. It's a whole curation process to get the people in there to be just placeholders so that they can continue to rule the school districts how they see fit, which it should be the other way around. Those school board members should be setting how that district is going to run. And your CEO, who's the superintendent, they do what the board says. If the board says, we want proficiency off the chart in this district within the next 5 years, we want to go from 29% to 79%, you put that on the administrator and say, you better do it, or we'll find someone that can. And that's how it's made to operate. But you've seen, Jenny, we've had school board members literally contact us that says, I can't even go in the school. I can't even get a single document or a record or this or that.
I'm not allowed to email my other board members to ask questions. I mean, all these bizarre things, and these people just believe them.
Yeah. Well, and they're threatened, the districts threaten these board members, so you do have good ones. You do have some that want to do the right thing, but like Visit said, you have to really be brave. And unfortunately, that's what it's going to take to turn things around, but we have to do it. The parents and all the people involved, the taxpayers, we've got to get that information out and know that these are issues, because, like you were kind of saying with the money, when you have just a a business, we'll just say this, and if you have a business that does not work, it doesn't matter how much money you put into it. It's not going to just automatically become.
You just make yourself broker.
Yeah, it's not going to, like a school. No matter how much money you pour into a school, it's not going to become more accountable because you're putting more money into it. It's not going to become a better, more transparent, better performing district just because you're pouring a ton of money into it. It has a systemic problem that goes right to the administrators and the school boards. And until that problem is fixed, it doesn't matter how much money you put into those things.
Well, and this is an interesting thought too, because I was talking to somebody the other day and we were talking about school board races, and we were particularly talking about Edmond, but this person is doing a study on school board races and how they end up compared to the union influence in that particular district. And I'm like, well, but here's the thing. I really don't think it's a union issue. But his thought was, wait a minute. Oh, by and large, what was the percentage that voted for Trump in Oklahoma? Wasn't it 67%? I want to say it was 67% of Oklahomans voted for President Trump. So if that's the case, and yet conservatives can't win a school board race, what's going on there? How does that actually happen? How is it that we can be in one of, we vote? I'm not going to say we're a conservative state. I've told you that before. We're not a red state. But I mean, we vote. The people here vote conservatively. So how do we get these board members, school board members, that are just so terrible? Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and Julie has been piping in quite a bit on our Rumble account today. She said great information, but she said our kids deserve to be taught that they can win by hard work and not by cheating, which is absolutely a fact. But we have school board members that kind of perpetuate that. And, my point was, and Julie and I have documented this over the years before, schools have a closed network. They have the ability to email directly parents. And there are laws that say that they cannot pump up a school bond, for example. They're not supposed to tell people to vote for certain things. But they get these emails out to parents that get them all hyped up about a bond issue. They never give a negative. They never, ever say, well, we could do this, or there's nothing like that. That's all, oh, we have to have this. If we don't have this, the kids are going to die. By God, they're going to die. And you're like, we have to do this for the kids. And they send this out on email, and they have a captive audience of people who, by and large, don't want to know what's going wrong with their school, because they send their kids to the school because they don't want to homeschool the kids, and they don't really want to know what's going on. So they just go, yeah, we have to have this, right? It's the worst closed loop of garbage in the entire, it's a bubble. It's just simply a bubble. And it just perpetuates itself through these emails that they send out that just skirt the law, right? That's how we get these school board members in, because it's lobbying by the school itself through their little closed network bubble, where they can talk to all and network with all of the parents and propagandize them in however way they want to. And there you've got parents who are willing to put up with it.
I said this countless times during my campaign for school board. It's what's really important here is what's going into the mind of those kids, not the walls that surround them. Everything is about the aesthetics and all this stuff, and all just the buildings and the stadiums and all, none of that matters if you got a 10% proficiency rate. I mean, what does it matter? I mean,
if you can't do math, does it really make sense that you can play football?
Yeah.
How many people actually get into the NFL and have those kinds of careers? Fractions of fractions. But yet we want to put all this money into these stadiums. We want to do all of this, put money back into the arts, for God's sakes. That actually grows brains. Sports don't, and don't start on me. Don't. Not going to even listen. Teamwork you can get any place else. I, as a taxpayer, don't want to pay for your kid to play football. And I don't care about the scores and who beats who in high school. I care about whether or not they can count back change at McDonald's, number one. But number two, I'd like to know that they can actually read, write, have common sense, be able to understand things because they've been taught how to actually use their mind to make critical decisions. And I don't care about your stupid sports. I just don't care. I mean, we were homeschoolers. We paid for our own sports. So, it's nonsense. It's all simple nonsense. But until you get people to actually wake up and go, wait, what was that saying about Rome burning while Nero fiddled? Well, we have a lot of parents who are just fiddling and their child's education is burning. Sorry. Call them as I see them. All right. And on that note, we are going to be back again on Friday with Carmen Greider, our ROPE Report regular. You're going to want to see her. She's going to be talking about the campaigns of several people that are coming up, and you'll be interested to know who's donating to who. So make sure you come in on Friday for Carmen. And then next Wednesday, we're going to have Julianne. And then next Friday, we're going to have a really interesting we're going to have the OTA ladies back to talk about something that I think will be interesting. And beyond that, we've got some great shows scheduled. Don't forget, at the end of May, so for June and July, and up until August 15th, we're only going to be live on Wednesdays. We won't even be doing a Friday program for the summer. So we'll only be live on Wednesdays. So don't forget, don't tune in on Friday and go, did they quit? Yeah, I'd like to some days, but we're not. We're just over the summer. We're going down to one podcast. Do you have anything to close us out, Michael?
No, that's it. I mean, just more money is not going to force any kind of accountability in our schools. We have to bring that accountability and get enough parents going to a single board member saying, hey, my child's going to this elementary school. This elementary school is only 29% proficient. We need to do something. This is a school in your district that you're over. Did you even know that? I think just like Visit said, a lot of these school board members, they don't even know. They're just snowed over like the rest of us by the administrators.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everybody, have a great Wednesday, Thursday. See you back on Friday morning. Excited to be with you then. And don't forget to check out rope2.org and visit our Patreon account. If you'd like to help us out, you can do it actually 3 ways. You can sign up on our YouTube account. Just go in and like our stuff. Sign up for our ROPE account on YouTube because it helps us be able to get monetized, and also do the same on Rumble because we actually are monetized on Rumble and we'd like to grow that. So please do that. Otherwise, we'll see you back here on Friday morning and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.